Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters. Thanks for joining us today's show. I'd like to thank all the brothers and sisters who've already contributed in the chat. We've got a couple of people watching. The link is also posted in the chat if anybody wants to come on and discuss this topic with Brother Yusuf. So that's enough from myself, Brother Muhammad from Cover FF. I'm going to pass the mic on to Brother Yusuf. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Yusuf Ismail from the South African Debate Initiative, and this is a live stream basically that is focusing on what I would call certainly, most definitely, the final stages in Gaza. What is clearly now not just a genocide, but a Holocaust that we're witnessing in the 21st century. I have no doubt that this is going to go, if this continues, this is going to go down worse than what the Nazis did in Nazi Germany during the Second World War. As you basically see, as we unpack, and this is obviously the 23rd of July, 2025, the hunger is deadly. The hunger is absolutely deadly. As of now, right now, 10 Palestinian children have died of forced starvation in the past 12 hours. In the past 12 to 24 hours, 10 just have died just of starvation, bringing the death toll from hunger, starving babies, right up until 111. This is just purely starvation, meaning you're dying of hunger. And according to the health ministry, the vast majority of them are in fact children. And as this is happening, you find the systematic point where Israel is continuously bombarding Gaza. There are no less than 109 aid groups that are calling for action against Israel, warning that starvation is basically spreading across the enclave. Even the EU, the pro-Israeli EU, has warned Israel of action of the worsening. I mean, it's not a worsening. It's worse than it's ever been. It's the worst that it's ever been. It is the images that you are seeing now in Gaza is absolutely horrific. Absolutely horrific. And as we're talking right now, besides people dying of starvation right now, at least 77, this is the latest, have been killed this morning. 77 Palestinians have been murdered this morning by Israeli airstrikes. 25 of them were walking, seeking aid. And these are medical sources that are there directly on the ground. I mean, this is going to shame and damn nations. You know, we've spoken for this for months, and we've reached a stage where they're no longer in danger of starvation. These children, these people are being slaughtered, destroyed, emaciated. They want to destroy and flatten Gaza. I want you to have a look at this, what was clearly once upon a time a pro-Israeli news report. Mohammed, if I can just share the screen. I don't have any ability to share a screen. How do I share a screen here? For some particular reason, on this StreamYard link, I don't know how to share a particular screen. Is there a way to share the screen? Mohammed, are you there? Are you there, Mohammed? I want to share a YouTube link, but I no longer have the ability to share in the studios, in the actual studio.
What we can do is, if you want to send me the link in possibly private chat, and then I can probably share it from my side.
Okay, so basically, so do I'll send you the links. It's just that it was critical that I show these two the Sky News report.
Yeah, so if you send it to me on WhatsApp, yes, send it to me on WhatsApp, and then I can hopefully open them up, inshallah.
So let me basically see what I can do. I'm going to send this to you, this particular video.
Sure.
That people see what we are dealing with. For some reason, I don't know. We don't seem to be having the the ability to share. I'm just trying to see if I can get this specific video. This is really, starvation is knocking on everybody's door. So I'm going to send this to you, and then you could probably play this on your side, and then so that people, and then we can have a look at what we are basically dealing. It's a 2-minute clip. I've just forwarded it to you. If you can basically open it on your screen. This is a Sky News report that is just about 8 hours ago, which effectively points out the fact that starvation is knocking at everybody's door. The images are absolutely horrifying. 101 Gazans now are, well, actually 111 have died of malnutrition. I want people to see this clip. It's about 2 minutes. If you can share this on your screen, let's have a look at this, Mohammed.
I'm trying to share it. Let me just see.
Do we no longer have the facility on StreamYard to share videos?
I can't seem to grab it onto mine, unfortunately. Let me just.
I think I've got it here. I think. Hold on a second. I may have got it here. Hold on a second. I think I've got it here from my side. Let me see now can you share my screen? I'll basically.
Yeah, I've got it. Yeah, I've got it. Yeah,
you can share. Can you share my screen? Yeah, no, that's my screen there that we're sharing. This is basically what's happening in Gaza. I'm going to just expand this so people can see what we're dealing. These are the images that are coming straight now. This is from Sky News. Have a look at this, people, and see what we're talking about.
Gaza's doctors say they're treating an influx of malnutrition cases, and in particular, children. It's impossible to verify the number of cases, children. And doctors say they're treating...
This is a child in nappies. Can you see the leg of this child? Look at the leg of this child. I mean, she can't even, the baby cannot even fit in nappies. People, look at this. And does Israel have no moral agency any longer? Does the world have no bloody moral agency?
Influx of malnutrition cases.
Look at the face. Look at the face of the child. The child can't even be breastfed.
And in particular, children. It's impossible to verify the numbers, but the United Nations has painted a vivid condemnation of aid distribution and its impact.
We need look no further than the horror show in Gaza, with a level of death and destruction without parallel in recent times. Malnourishment is soaring, starvation is knocking on every door. And now we are seeing the last gasp of a humanitarian system built on humanitarian principles.
This we showed the last time. This was the GHF death squads. It's not even humanitarian. It is the Gaza Death Squad Force. The Gaza Death Squad Foundation. It's a death trap, the Death Trap Foundation, which is calling Gazan Palestinians and murdering them.
This is what the head of the UN is talking about. The abject chaos and danger Gazans face trying to get food. Aid used to be distributed mainly by the UN. Now their warehouses are shut because Israel accused Hamas of stealing and profiting from sites.
And this is a lie, because Hamas did not steal at all. Hamas has never stolen aid. The aid was stolen by this gang, but Sidney McCain, the head of the World Food Program, the wife of the most pro-Israeli US senator that ever lived, John McCain, said that there's no evidence that Hamas stole any aid. No evidence whatsoever. And how can they be stealing aid from the GHF? GHF is calling people and they're murdering them. How can they be stealing aid from the GHF? It doesn't make sense.
Like this. The Israeli and American-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation took over the running of aid in Gaza 2 months ago.
It has been a nightmare.
They're accused of failing to feed Gaza's people, and the UN claims around 1,000 people have died at or near GHF sites or trying to get food, prompting a war of words between the...
Imagine that. This is a foundation which supposedly supports you in getting food, and 1,000 people have been murdered to date so far. 1,000 have been murdered.
Organisations. In a statement, the GHF said, the false and exaggerated statistics from the UN seem to come directly from the Hamas-controlled Gaza Health Ministry.
It's quite clear that this is a lie. This is a total lie. Why would there be mouthpieces? Why would Sky News be a mouthpiece of the GHF?
The UN's reliance and coordination with a terrorist organisation not only disturbing, but the UN
these killings. Not happening. There is the UN and other
controls the borders with Gaza, and as it pushes
non-stop starvation. You can't make this up any longer. You saw the images. The images are shocking. The images are absolutely horrific to the core. Absolutely horrific. You can't justify. You can't make this up. This is what is described as the fastest starvation campaign in modern history. That's what one UN special rapporteur on food basically made this point. In fact, Michael Fakhri, who's the UN special rapporteur on the right to food, basically stated that 78-day long extreme blockade, and now backed, of course, by this death squad called the GHF, is the fastest starvation campaign we've ever seen in modern history. The fastest ever. I mean, there's mass suffering, both preventable and indeed predictable. And you've got every single NGO on the ground, including Amnesty International, Oxfam, Doctors Without Borders. They quote and they've confirmed that illnesses like acute water diarrhea is reaching endemic proportions. Markets are empty. Waste, piles of shit are piling up. Adults are collapsing on the streets from hunger and dehydration. You have a situation of a Palestinian mother who states that there's nothing. They have nothing. They have absolutely nothing in terms. Look at this report on Democracy Now!, which I want you to have a look at and see, to give an indication how these Palestinian mothers are begging the world and looking into our eyes, and we can do nothing. If we can share the screen, Mohammed, I've just opened this for us to basically share, and I just want to go directly to this. If it's on, here we are. I'm going to expand this so that people can see what we are doing. Here we are.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman. More than 100 humanitarian groups are demanding action to at least 111 people. Reporters warn, quote, illnesses like acute watery diarrhea are spreading, markets are empty, waste is piling up, adults are collapsing on the streets from hunger and dehydration.
There's been images. You see one image of an adult being given food, and then he collapses and he dies. I don't know if you've seen that, Mohammed. It was on X. An old man, he collapses. He just dies while standing up. His head just drops and he dies.
Quote. Their warning came as Palestinian Ministry of Health said.
Look at this. This is kwashiorkor. Can you see the baby's stomach? This is kwashiorkor. The baby's dead. Dead babies. What are we looking at in the world? Where are these Muslim leaders? In Jordan, there was somebody that was arrested just recently. I think 3 days ago, I saw a report that he had put something. He didn't want to have a celebration of his wedding. So he put a mark on his vehicle to say, how can I celebrate, in Arabic, of course, whilst Gaza is starving and the Arab world is doing nothing. And he was arrested. I mean, this is in the heart of the Muslim world. Where are the Muslim leaders? Do something. Where are the Muslim armies? I mean, this is a human situation. If it was happening to anybody, where's your humanity? Where's your soul? Where's your decency? Nothing.
Number of starvation-related deaths has climbed to at least 111 people. This is Ghada Al-Fayumi, a displaced Palestinian mother of 7 in Gaza City.
Look at these children.
My children wake up sick every day. What do? I get a saline solution for them. What can I do? There's no food, no bread, no drinks, no rice, no sugar, no cooking oil, no bulgur, nothing. There's no kind of any food available to us at all.
Thousands of anti-war protesters marched Tuesday in Tel Aviv on Israel's military headquarters, demanding an end to Israel's assault and a lifting of the Gaza siege. This is Israeli peace activist Alon Green with the group Standing Together.
We are marching now in Tel Aviv, holding bags of flour and the pictures of these children that have been starved to death by our government and our army. We demand to stop the starvation in Gaza. We demand to stop the annihilation of Gaza. We demand to stop the daily killing of children and innocent people in Gaza. This cannot go on. We are Israelis, and this does not serve us. This only serves the Messianic people that lead us.
This comes as the World Health Organization's released video showing the Israeli military attacking WHO facilities in central Gaza's Deir al-Balah. A WHO spokesperson condemned the attack.
The background is they went to Deir al-Balah and they started targeting and shooting at the World Health Organization facility. They then arrested 2 people, and as of now, 2 members of the World Health Organization have been detained and arrested and possibly tortured in Israeli dungeons without being informed about why they're being kept there. Nothing whatsoever.
The immediate release of a staff member abducted by Israeli forces.
Male staff and family members were handcuffed, stripped, interrogated on the spot, and screened at gunpoint. 2 WHO staff and 2 family members were detained.
Meanwhile, health officials in Gaza say Israeli attacks over the past day killed more than 70 people, including 5 more people seeking food at militarized aid sites. Amidst growing outrage worldwide, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said Tuesday the situation in Gaza right now is a horror show.
We need to look no further than the horror show in
Gaza. Now, if you can respond to what's happening right now, the images of dying infants starving to death, the number is now at over 100, people dropping in the streets, reporters saying they can't go on. Agence France Presse's union talked about they've had reporters killed in conflict, they've had reporters disappeared, injured. But they have not had this situation before, but with their reporters starving to death.
Amy, the word horror, I mean, we're running out of words of what to say. And the reason it's horrific is it was preventable. We saw this coming. We've seen this coming for 20 months. Israel announced its starvation campaign back in October 2023. And then again, Prime Minister Netanyahu announced on March 1st that nothing was to enter Gaza. And that's what happened for 78 days. No food, no water, no fuel, no medicine entered Gaza. And then they built these militarized aid sites that are used to humiliate, weaken, and kill the Palestinians. So what makes this horrific, it has been preventable, it was predictable. And again, this is the fastest famine we've seen, the fastest starvation campaign we've seen in modern history.
So can you talk about what needs to be done at this point and the responsibility of the occupying power? Israel is occupying Gaza right now. What it means to have to protect the population it occupies.
The International Court of Justice outlined Israel's duties in its decisions over the last year. So what Israel has an obligation to do is first end its illegal occupation immediately. This came from the court itself. Second, it must allow humanitarian relief to enter with no restrictions. And this hasn't been happening. So usually we would turn to the Security Council to authorize peacekeepers or something similar to assist. But predictably, again, the United States keeps vetoing anything to do with a ceasefire. When the Security Council is in a deadlock because of a veto, the General Assembly, the United Nations General Assembly, has the authority to call for peacekeepers to accompany humanitarian convoys to enter into Gaza and to end Israel's starvation campaign against the Palestinian people.
People actually protested outside the house of UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres yesterday. People protested all.
So that's basically from Democracy Now, and that is Michael Fakhri, the UN Special Rapporteur on Food, stating that this has been basically preventable and predictable, but essentially thanks to the impunity that Israel has received from the international community and the calls for the United Nations to impose sanctions on Israel is essentially falling on dead ears. And he made the point when the Security Council is in a deadlock because of a veto, the General Assembly has the authority still to call for peacekeepers to accompany humanitarian convoys to enter Gaza. But why is that not being done? Why on earth is that not being done? The UN can authorize peacekeepers immediately to end the starvation. The world has a duty to prevent starvation. That's what he's basically saying. And this is, of course, supported by the International Court of Justice. The world needs to impose worldwide sanctions and call for the dismantling and eradication of the state of Israel. That, once this ends, it's not over. Once this ends, Israel has to go. The nation state of Israel has to be disbanded completely. We don't require this at all. The world needs to impose worldwide sanctions against Israel completely and utterly. I mean, this I take it for granted. I take it for granted from a tap. And I've got a purifying system here that because sometimes our tap water is not too clean, even though it's still by normal standard, by Gazan standards, this is luxury. This is a luxury. Milk is being sold now by the ISIS gangs for $100. The ISIS-supported thugs of Israel for $100 if they can get hold of it. How do they get hold of it if not through the GHF? Where does Hamas feature in any of this? 972 magazine, which is an Israeli magazine which we've discussed many times, quotes a mother where it says, my body is breaking down. My mother is collapsing from exhaustion. My cousin cheats death every day for a morsel of aid. Gaza's children have long reached a stage of beyond dying. They are suffocating to death in front of our eyes, and we are powerless to help them. This lady here states that they haven't tasted meat, they haven't eaten eggs, fish, they cannot even get water. Most of the time, they are constantly weak. The bodies are shutting down. The bodies of the children are in fact shutting down. I mean, where do you get a situation where there's more than 100 deaths just purely out of starvation? Where would you ever get that? Where would you get that? This is what you see. This is what you see when the world goes silent. When people no longer care. Here was the report just last week on the 15th of July. Have a look at this. This is a report on the 15th of July. Aid for Gaza's starving children is right at the gates. Let it in. Israel is blocking 6,000 UNRWA trucks. I mean, UNRWA can come in. They won't let them in from entering Gaza whilst children die of hunger. Imagine that. Look at this. This is an 8-month-old baby at an UNRWA clinic on the 9th of July. He wasn't even born when the genocide commenced. He's born into a bloody genocide. Wake up, man. What are we doing about this? This little boy, I mean, the nappies cannot even fit around him. And you bastards want to defend this? What is happening? This is Kwashiorkor. His bones can be seen. You know, when babies reach this level of starvation, ask any nutritionist. They can't even latch on to their mother to drink their milk. That's what happens. They don't have the energy. They don't have the strength. They have to be force-fed via injection syringe. And you don't even have that in Gaza. That's another boy, Salim Wadi. This is another report. This report is written by Juliet Tuma. This is an Israeli news magazine, 972, by the way. A phenomenal magazine. And of course, it's by human rights activists within Israel and, of course, Palestinians that are staying in Israel. The emaciation, the famine, the cholera, this is Gaza. This was Gaza. This is another 9-month-old, Ahlam, at the UNRWA school in Gaza City. This is Ahlam. Her family has been displaced every month since the war began, always searching for safety that doesn't exist, because you send them to a particular place and then these bastards bomb them. The Israeli thugs bomb them. Like many babies in Gaza, her tiny body is weakened, her immune system has been damaged, repeated displacement. I mean, you know, forget. What about the psychological damage that these people and children face? Forget even things like education. They can't even go to school. I mean, that's over. What about the psychological damage these people have been facing? The shock, the horror, the awe. I mean, and what about disabled people, disabled children? What about mentally challenged individuals? People with Down syndrome, autism, babies born into such conditions. What happens to them? She can survive if those 6,008 trucks can come in. If they come in, she can survive. What about this boy here? Can he survive? Do you think he'll make it? Do you think this boy will make it? And now, why is he at an UNRWA clinic? Why? Because his parents have been killed. I mean, they don't even have proper orphanages. There are children now on their own, walking aimlessly and hopelessly. Children, 6, 7, walking without parents. Don't know where to turn. Don't know where to go to. No one to look after. There's no one. No one's there out there for them. Who's going to take care of them? What about a 4-year-old child with a baby in her arms? What does she do? What does a 4-year-old do with a baby in her arms, or a 6-year-old for that matter do with a little baby sister? No parents, no mother, no father, no nobody. They can only rely on other fellow Palestinians who are themselves struggling. You see, you can help people if you are basically in some position of authority. But if you're not, then how do you help them? How do you help them? Another baby, 6-month-old Iman, being screened for malnutrition. So when you see people like Jonathan Conricus talking about seeing fat Palestinians, I mean, these are sick people, sick human beings, sick people. This is what they are saying. We are starving. My body is breaking down completely. My mother is collapsing from exhaustion. My cousin cheats death every day for a morsel of aid. Gaza's children are dying in front of our eyes, and we are powerless to help them. How come we are powerless in the year 2025? Why? Why are we powerless after months and months and months and months and months and months of slaughter? How come we are powerless? This is Ruwaida Amar in this report writing. I don't know if she's writing herself or somebody else is writing for her, or this is a journalist, but the words are, I've never meant these words. I am so hungry. Every moment I find myself wishing, if only this were just a nightmare, if only I could wake up and it would be all over. Since last May, I was forced to flee from my home and take shelter with relatives in Khan Yunis refugee camp. I've heard those words uttered by countless people around me. Hunger feels like an assault on our dignity, a cruel contradiction in a world that prides itself on progress and innovation. Every morning we think about one thing. My thoughts are to our sick mother who had spinal surgery. How do you have spinal surgery in a hospital which doesn't operate? Explain that. I mean, these doctors in Gaza are absolutely phenomenal. Phenomenal. This is another 12-year-old receives some sort of treatment for malnutrition at the now destroyed Nasser hospital. We try to buy anything from the market because the black markets, but the prices are impossible. A kilo of tomatoes now costs over $25. Cucumbers are around $20. I don't know how many pounds that is. Do you know how much $20 are in South Africa? $20 is 360 rands. 360 rands. You can probably buy grocery items, and cucumbers are being sold at $20. This is in the Al-Mawasi strip where they are murdering Palestinians. Bodies are shutting down. And I mean, nothing is stopping. I think I discussed this last week, where Israel was enforcing Gaza evacuations with grenade-firing drones. You know, these were Chinese-made drones that were being weaponized by the Israelis. And essentially what this report by, I think it was by Yuval Abraham. Is it Yuval Abraham? Let's see if it's Yuval Abraham. Yeah, it's Yuval Abraham, who's done phenomenal work when he spoke about the AI, basically the lavender and some of the other items which were used. But this is on July 10th last week, where he mentioned the fact that Israel had weaponized this kind of fleet of drones which were being sold by China to attack Palestinians in Gaza, to depopulate them. He makes the point that according to interviews with 7 soldiers and officers, these drones are operated manually by troops on the ground and are frequently used to bomb civilians, including children, in an effort to force them to leave their homes or to prevent them from returning to evacuated areas. I mean, how sick is this? How sick? They're using Evo drones. And these drones basically have some sort of grenade. They fire grenades and they kill you. Produced by the Chinese, who are in themselves engaging in some sort of massacre and slaughter about the Uyghurs in China as well. Yuval Abraham interviewed an Israeli soldier, and he stated that, who served in Rafah, that coordinated drone attacks in the neighborhood of that city. During the nearly 100 days, soldiers conducted dozens of drone strikes So it's like a computer game, a video game. People's lives, in all the reports, all Palestinians who killed were terrorists, were listed as terrorists. How convenient. So once you list them as terrorists, well, who cares? Who bothers? Doesn't really matter. These are terrorists. These are evil. Let's get rid of them. This is the excuse they use. The drone strikes were carried out with the intent to kill. For example, in one instance where these Palestinians were not in an armed zone and they were being slaughtered. He points out, this is the Israeli soldier. It was clear they were trying to return their homes. There's no question. None of them were armed and nothing was ever found near their bodies. We never even fired warning shots. Not at any point. Not at any point. And then he goes on to say that because the Palestinians were killed far from where the soldiers were positioned, their corpses weren't collected. Instead, the army left them to be eaten by stray dogs. You know why? Because now, whenever there's a strike in Gaza, who's first on the scene? Who is first on the scene? The dogs, the animals, the cats. They've been now trained. These animals have been trained on their own that whenever there's a bombing, whenever there's a strike, whenever there's a killing, there's dead bodies they can eat. He says you could see it on the drone footage. I couldn't bring myself to watch a dog eating a body, but others around me, that's his soldiers, watched it. Other Israeli soldiers watched it. They watched it. How sick and sadistic is this Israeli army? The sadistic, satanic Israeli Defense Force that needs to be destroyed is watching a dog eating a dead body. Is this normal? It says the dogs have learned to run towards areas where there's a shooting or explosions. They understand it probably means there's a body there for them to eat. The dogs. Imagine your body being eaten up by dogs and maggot infested. And your sick, satanic bastard United Kingdom government has the audacity to basically arrest Palestine Action and call Palestine Action a terrorist organization. How evil are you? We should support Palestine Action for UK to the hilt. We support Hamas to the hilt. You know, what kind of society is it that when any society makes it a crime for you to speak out against criminal activities, then you need to know that the criminals are in charge. That's the reality of what's happening. In that the United Kingdom government is a criminal government. How do you basically criminalize a peace group like Palestine Action for UK, which talks about evil and the Israeli genocide? But that actual killing, that actual murder, that actual slaughter, that starvation, that is not criminalized. That's not criminalized. That's okay. To talk about it, you can go to jail. And we've seen in the United Kingdom, 83 years old, 86-year-old female priests, Christian elders within their churches being arrested, going to jail. Elderly people being taken to jail for speaking out against what they see in Gaza. Sick, sick, sick. These are the drones. These are the drones. And they drop grenades. Soldiers testified that these drone strikes are often carried out against anyone entering an area the army has determined is off limits, a designation that is never demarcated on the ground. So how would they know? Two sources use variations of the phrase learning through blood to describe the army's expectation that Palestinians will come to understand these arbitrary boundaries after civilians are killed upon entering the area. There were many instances of dropping grenades from drones. This is another soldier. Were they aimed at armed militants? Definitely not. Once a commander defines an imaginary red line that no one is allowed to cross, anyone Anyone who does it is marked for death, even for just walking on the streets. The Israeli soldier says Israeli troops deliberately targeted children. There was a boy who entered the off-limit zones. He didn't do anything. Other soldiers claim to have seen him standing and talking to people. That's it. They dropped a grenade from a drone. In another incident, he said soldiers tried to kill a child riding a bicycle a great distance from them. So this is a report which is now showing deliberate targeting of civilians. This is more than a genocide. It's a Holocaust. Another soldier, in many cases, there was nothing you could tell. There's no way to complete. We killed them because there's no answer. And officers involved in operations around Khan Yunis said the primary goal of these attacks was to ensure that the neighborhoods were emptied or remained empty of Palestinians. In June, his unit flew a drone into a residential area that the army had ordered to be evacuated. Soldiers stood at the city's outskirts, watching a small screen showing live footage from the drone to see who was still in the neighborhood. Whoever they spot, they kill. Whoever they spot, they kill. If people are moving around there, it's a threat. Imagine that. Your own land, your own area, you're hungry, you're starved, you got no food, you got nowhere to turn, you got no house, you got no safe space to walk. But then if you walk a slight distance, you're killed. Sick. This is another footage by the journalist Yunus Tarawi. He had obtained where the drones dropped the grenade targeting civilians in the Netzarim corridor. This was the report on X. I'm not so sure if X can open up. There we are. That was a report on X. Look at that. Look at that. So basically, these are drones which are used to kill them and murder them. And these are commercial drones being sold from China. Chinese-made DJI drones. And the aim is to basically kill them, murder them. And these are the operational mechanisms, like a video game. For them, it's a video game. It's a video game. Well, what do you do in a situation like this? Where do these people go to? They want to rid the entire place. It's clearly set out for destruction. It's what they call it, what South Africa did at the International Court of Justice, what's unfolding before our very eyes. If you can't see that this is not a genocide, then there's something wrong with you. Totally wrong. You're sick. That's Yuval Abraham, a journalist, in fact, an Oscar award-winning journalist that basically won the Academy Award for a documentary that he did some time back. In I think when was it? In fact, earlier this year. It was done earlier this year. That was a documentary. This was a Channel 4 report, by the way, on Gaza, where we see lifelines collapsing and starvation knocking on the door of everybody. There's no dispute in terms of this. If I can open this I'm going to try and open this and just basically close this. Have a look at this. I'm just going to try and share the screen so people can see. I mean, you know, one can go on talking, but it's important and reading the material out there. But when you see these images, then people begin to appreciate what they are seeing. You know, otherwise you won't appreciate the reality of the situation on the ground. We can share the
endless march of parents burying.
We can share the screen here so people can see this. Yeah, here we are. Let's start with this. And so here we are.
It's become a daily sight. Over 655 days of this
That's
war.
a dead baby. The mother's carrying her dead baby. Look at the bundle, little bundle. What would have been a bundle of joy. She's carrying a dead baby.
The endless march of parents burying children.
Father carrying his dead baby. What have his children done?
But 3-month-old Yahya wasn't killed in an Israeli airstrike. His body simply ebbed away.
He died from malnutrition because his family were unable to feed him or his siblings. They couldn't provide him with infant formula or nappies.
At Rantisi Children's Hospital,
more the babies. They starved. Kwashiorkor. That's Kwashiorkor. What we used to see in Ethiopia and Somalia. What is this?
And more families are seeking help for malnourished children.
Look at the baby. Look at the bloated baby.
Born prematurely or with complex needs remain.
Baby cannot be fed. Look at the baby. Skin and bones. Is it fair to see them suffer in such a way? Please come on this program and debate me so I can humiliate you and expose you for the thug that you are.
At greatest risk, but with only a trickle of aid entering the strip since late May, after more than 2 months of total blockade, that risk is spreading. And for Sham, it's particularly acute.
There's no milk, and I don't have the nutrition to breastfeed her naturally.
She's got no milk. There's no milk in the normal sense, and she's got no milk to feed the baby. Does it pierce your conscience, people out there? Does it pierce your conscience? There's a chap of mine, neighbor, brainwashed. His name is, I think, Gerard, Afrikaner guy, totally brainwashed. He's got a friend of his, John, a chap called John, owned the gym some time back. I've challenged him. I've told him to come on. Then a couple of days ago, he said, let's meet for a fight. He can't debate. He wants to have a fight. This bastard wants to have a fight with me. I think a guy in his 60s, he's got some martial arts background, wants to have a fight. Obviously, I don't go, but I tell him if he wants to come and see me. I give you my address. You come to the gym, come and try and put me down. Fight if you want to fight. But here we're exposing the evil that you support.
Health has deteriorated. We hope that milk and nappies for children will be allowed in and that crossings will open to bring in food. As mothers, we watch our children suffer and it pains us.
This lovely baby is 11 months old.
In southern Gaza.
11 months old. That's almost a year old. This is a year-old baby. Look at the condition of this baby. Do you know what kwashiorkor is? Do people even know what kwashiorkor is? Look at the baby here.
At Nasser Hospital, the same phenomenon. Baby Sila should be 3 times her current 3-kilogram weight.
She's cardiac free, chest free.
Kwashiorkor basically is, if I can give you the exact the meaning of it, it's basically a severe form of malnutrition characterized by significant forms of nutrition deficiency of all kinds, particularly found in developing countries and primarily affects children. More specifically with swelling of the abdomen and extremities, the edema, fluid retention. That's fluid retention, especially in the body, the lymphs. They are most common in regions with high poverty and food insecurity. This is not food insecurity. This is not food insecurity in Gaza. This is starvation. Starvation.
Will open to bring in food. As mothers, we watch our children suffer, and it pains us.
This lovely baby is 11 months old.
In southern Gaza, at Nasser Hospital, the same phenomenon. Baby Sila should be 3 times her current 3-kilogram weight.
She's cardiac-free, chest-free, neurological-free. The problem in this baby is just acute severe malnutrition. The mother is malnourished. She's unable to give breastfeeding.
Atlas AI voiceover feature allows you to turn your words into voices you never thought you had. Simply pick.
Families like Sila's losing out in the brutal competition for what limited aid gets through. Here in Gaza's far northwest, they hurl stones at the aid truck to force it to stop. Then it's every man for himself. Watch the man in the bottom right. He's too late to grab a bag of flour, so he tries to take one, brandishing what appears to be a knife. This is close to where Gaza's health ministry says 67 people seeking aid were killed by Israeli fire on Sunday. But still they come, day after day.
Sunday, that's just 2 days ago. 60 were killed on
suffering
Sunday.
To provide for my children. I went to death to get a bag of flour for them. A truck wheel almost ran over my head, and I was injured when I got the bag.
Desperation still at the remaining soup kitchens, reliant on traditional aid mechanisms. Today, one provider said its stocks had been entirely depleted.
I swear it's been 4 days since I've eaten, and I can't stand. Look at my hands shaking. We can't stand, and my son is crying, telling me, I want to eat, Dad, I want to eat.
People like Ibrahim unable to take the other option, to run the gauntlet near sites belonging to the US-Israeli-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, where hundreds have been killed in the last 2 months. In Deir al-Balah, Israel's latest ground incursion continues, the many times displaced coming back to find their camp destroyed. No belongings, nothing even left to cook with, says Mohammed. And look, they're still bombing us. It's hard to imagine life breaking down yet further in Gaza, but people talk openly of competition to survive, of sadness at having to refuse others the help they would once have given. One more thing to add to the list of what's been lost.
Harry Fawcett reporting there. Well, joining me now is Olga Cherevko, the spokesperson for the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs on Gaza. Thank you so much for joining us. The UN Secretary General says life in Gaza is a horror show. What are your people on the ground telling you?
Thanks, Jackie. Yes, it's quite accurate. I think we are increasingly having difficulty describing the catastrophe that is on the ground. And every time I leave Gaza, just even if it's for a few days, once I get back there, I'm horrified at how much worse it had progressed. And now the situation seems to be deteriorating even at a faster rate with these reports of people, children and adults dying from hunger. And of course, as we've said for many months now, malnutrition rates have been soaring for over 4 months. And everywhere you look and everyone you speak to asks, the first thing they ask for is food. And they tell you that they haven't eaten, some of them for days. Many of them are prioritizing their children, and they really don't know what tomorrow will bring or if there will be a tomorrow at all.
So the situation is going extremely bad, beyond measure, beyond basically what you can think about, what you can see. I mean, it is insane. There's no aid supplies left. The staff are starving. Even the staff are starving in Gaza. The doctors themselves are starving. The Norwegian Refugee Council, for example, states that Israel wants to, in fact, even paralyze their own works, their own staff. It's basically the famine experts and the genocide experts have pointed out that this is something which is unprecedented in modern times. Totally unprecedented in modern times. And they don't care. They really don't care. Israel actually wants to paralyze the works of many of these starving Palestinians, the refugee councils, the individuals that are there. They've got nowhere to go, nowhere to turn. This is essentially what is happening. This is really what's happening. This is the Norwegian Refugee Humanitarian Council. And look what they say on this very point from Middle East Eye, Norwegian Refugee Council. If we can just share this page, Mohammed. This is the Norwegian Refugee Council. Here we are. And see what they say. No aid supply. The staff that are supposed to feed. They are the staff from the Norwegian Refugee Council. They are starving themselves.
Our last food parcel, our last relief items have been distributed. There is nothing left. There is nothing left. It's now 145 days without any supplies. And of course, there's hundreds of truckloads just for my organizations waiting to get in. That's why we are so angry, because our job is to help women, children, the innocent survive. And we're not used to people beyond Assad in Syria, beyond some of the armed groups in the Congo or in Sudan deny us access. We're not used to a government supported by Western capitals systematically starving entire populations. Much of our work has come to a halt because of Israel's stranglehold on the population of Gaza. They are not letting in our trucks. So for 145 days and nights, we haven't gotten in anything. Hundreds of truckloads have been sitting in warehouses or in Egypt or elsewhere, and costing us and our Western European donors a lot of money, but they are blocked from coming to the population in Gaza. In the last few weeks, our main service has been that of providing safe drinking water to nearly 100,000 people through the desalination of water and the trucking of water to some of the many displacement camps in sight. That is now threatened like everything else because of relocation and because of lack of fuel. We who have been there for a generation in Gaza and in war zones for 79 years have been denied continuation of our work. One organization has done that before against NRC in Gaza, and that was Hamas, because Hamas also tried to interfere. We laid down work when they tried to interfere. They invaded our offices. We did not yield. In the end, Hamas yielded, and we were allowed to continue work. Israel is not yielding. They just want to paralyze our work. We do not have any supplies left. There is nothing in our storage rooms. Our staff is also starving.
Did you catch that? The staff is starving. The staff is starving, or the Norwegian Refugee Council.
Here for the future. And many staff who said, we want to be here forever to help our brothers and sisters, basically say, we're not fearing for the lives of our children. We cannot continue in this.
I mean, this is, what can I say, nauseating. And this is also a report from just whilst the stream is on Channel 4. I don't want to show. So Al Jazeera is doing phenomenal work, but this is basically just from 57 minutes ago, the aid blockages. I want you to see 3 minutes of this clip on Channel 4. We won't get a strike from Channel 4 like we do from Al Jazeera and some of the other channels, but have a look at this 4-minute clip from Channel 4 News to see the situation here. Here we are. And let's just expand this. Let's expand this. This is on Channel 4. And then you listen to the United Nations on the ambassador, the Israeli ambassador, the United States, and the audacity in terms of what he says. Listen to this.
Imagine the power of the blast that destroyed this home in Gaza City, the noise, the violence of it. Then listen to the quiet a few hours later.
You know what they're picking
the
up?
Hush as they dig out gently the body.
You know what they're digging? Check what they're digging.
Of a 10-year-old boy.
Digging out a 10-year-old boy, a starved boy. Digging him out. He was crushed to death. Did he deserve to die in this fashion? Did he deserve to die? Well, are they going after Hamas? What are they achieving by killing children like this?
His cousin struggles even with the child's scant weight.
10 years old.
10-year-old boy. This is a 10-year-old boy. Look at the weight. Look at the size of him. I've got a 9-year-old, slightly bigger in size than this little boy. Look at the size of him. Look at the size, how small he is.
We retrieved him from under the rubble. He is a little boy who is not guilty of anything. The missile hit him. Praise God.
A whole family, 8 people, witnesses say, were killed here. And even among the shock and the grief, the ever-present subject of hunger.
The children slept without food last night. Some people went for aid. Some people were getting aid. And some were here and got their destiny. This is our destiny with God.
More than 100 aid agencies are now warning of spreading mass starvation.
Some people went for aid.
Listen to him.
A whole family, 8 people, witnesses say, were killed here.
8 people were killed. An entire family, you just wiped them out.
And even among the shock and the grief, the ever-present subject of hunger.
The children slept without food last night. Some people went for aid. Some people were getting aid. And some were here and got their destiny. This is our destiny with God.
Look at the faith, their destiny with God. You can't break the spirit of this man. You cannot break the spirit of this man.
More than 100 aid agencies are now warning of spreading mass starvation, accusing Israel of preventing the entry of aid or denying agencies access to or the ability to distribute supplies in depots.
Desperation. Desperate people. Desperate.
Just inside Gaza.
There is literally not enough food in Gaza, and what we're seeing is an increase, exponential increase in the number of children, pregnant women, breastfeeding women in our clinic that we see who are now malnourished, and there seems to have been a tipping point. All the coping mechanisms that families have put in place are now absolutely at the brink.
Israel's military released these images, saying hundreds of aid trucks were stuck on the Gaza side of crossings, and that among the aid delivered...
Look at this. There's food there on the borders. 6,000 UNRWA trucks. They're refusing them entry because they want the GHF Death Squad. They want the Gaza Death Squad Foundation to be operational so that the death traps can continue and they can kill as many Palestinians as they want to. That's the whole aim, to get them into these little pens, seduce them with the idea that they're getting food, and when they come, you shoot them. There's no other way out. They're being shot.
Since mid-May, was 2,500 tons of baby food and high-calorie food for children.
2,500 tons of baby food that could be helping these little children. Not blockade. There's been a permanent blockade.
Israel blaming the UN for failing to distribute it.
How can you blame them when you are stopping them from basically entering Gaza?
This idea of famine and starvation has been thrown at us.
This bastard is a nasty piece of work. His name is David Mensa. He replaced another scumbag by the name of a young boy called another brat by the name of Elon Levi. But this bastard, he's a British blockhead. He's from your country in the United Kingdom. And according to him, everything is fine. They're giving out food. There's no starvation. There's no people. They're fat Gazans and there's fat Hamas people.
Consistently on a weekly basis for the last 2 years now. It has never come to pass. So these are false warnings which come from these aid organizations. And I also would say...
False warnings, piss off!
...that where there is hunger in Gaza, it is hunger orchestrated by Hamas.
Hunger orchestrated by Hamas. Can you believe that? Hunger orchestrated by Hamas. Rubbish! Rubbish! You are starving the people and then you blame... It's an inversion of reality. It's your Orwellian Big Brother mantra that you're putting out there, where you are starving and killing and murdering and maiming and destroying people and you blaming the victims. Wake up!
At the same time, Israel says it's successfully circumventing Hamas with the controversial Gaza humanitarian...
How? In what way? When you're shooting innocent people and giving them food in certain instances where they can't even cook because there's no water. How do people cook flour powder? How? How do you cook it when the water's toxic?
Foundation mechanism. But with hundreds killed accessing those sites, many have been intercepting UN trucks, adding to the problem of distributing aid.
When your child hasn't eaten for days, you are willing to do whatever it takes to try and get access. So I do have an understanding for the fact that it might be very difficult to actually distribute, but also we know that the borders have been blocked. And this is a situation of malnutrition that has nothing to do with a crop that has failed. A few kilometers from me, there is food for everybody who wants to eat, and this is what makes it.
And that's the irony. There's food and there's trucks out there just a few kilometers outside Gaza, whilst the whole of Gaza is being starved. And the swine David Mensa stated that Hamas is basically causing the starvation. Rubbish!
So infuriating to work in these circumstances. People are being starved on purpose.
At the UN Security
People are being starved on purpose.
Council today, Palestine's representative challenging member states after this week's joint condemnation of Israel by 28 countries, including Britain.
What did you do during this genocide? Not what you said or what you considered doing, but what did you actually do? History will remember us all for the lives we failed to save. But many more lives remain to be saved. Let us not fail them.
50 innocent people remain held hostage.
Yeah.
Israel.
By the way, those I listened to Mustafa Barghouti. Those 50 that are hostages are actually soldiers. Let's make no mistake. Those 50, they're not hostages. They're not hostages. Once you're a soldier, once you're a combatant, you're a prisoner of war. I was surprised. I didn't know that until I listened to Mustafa Barghouti a couple of weeks back. In fact, back then it was slightly more. But they are soldiers. They're not civilians, although one could make the argument that even the civilians have at some point been conscripted. But give it for the sake of argument, those people who are kept now in Gaza are not hostages. For those who want a point of fact from me, that you can share with your friends, those 50 people in Gaza right now that they're asking for release are not hostages, they're soldiers. Netanyahu doesn't want them released. Netanyahu wants to ensure that the war basically continues. It doesn't end.
Has been working tirelessly to bring them home, but Hamas has rejected each and every offer. For Hamas,
well, it's quite ironical that Hamas basically agreed to all the terms of the ceasefire that was proposed by the United States a few weeks back, and Israel turned it down. Israel basically rejected every single point.
Suffering of its own people is their greatest weapon. The longer the misery continues, the longer they can feed it into their propaganda machine.
But the hunger driving children to compete for looted aid that pushes ever more into malnutrition is all too real. So too the Israeli bombs that continue every day to kill, as talks on a ceasefire remain stalled of all things by arguments over how to distribute aid.
Well, let's speak to Sam Rose, who's acting director of UNRWA affairs in Gaza, UNRWA being the UN agency for Palestinian refugees, which is in fact banned by Israel. Sam Rose, there are lots of different UN agencies. Can you help us with these allegations by Israel that it is the UN that is failing to collect hundreds of trucks that have crossed the Kerem Shalom crossing into Gaza but are just sitting there rotting?
Yeah, absolutely, Krishnan. I mean, look, nothing gets into Gaza without the say-so of the Israeli authorities. That has been life in Gaza for more than 20 years, as you know. Certainly my organization...
You heard what he said, nothing gets in without the say-so of the Israelis, and that's been the position for more than 20 years.
UNRWA, we have 6,000 trucks of aid outside of the Gaza Strip. We are not permitted to bring any of those supplies in. Enough food.
So there's 6,000 aid trucks, UNRWA trucks, just outside the border of Gaza. They're not allowed to enter.
For everyone, for 3 months inside Gaza, the distribution mechanisms, the community trust to distribute it safely, as we showed during the ceasefire period, and indeed as we've shown for 75 years uninterrupted inside of the Gaza Strip. I've seen these images of trucks at Kerem Shalom, at the border crossing, on the Palestinian side of the border crossing. What I can tell you is that the UN agencies that are consigned to collect those trucks can only go to the border area with the explicit approval of the Israeli authorities, navigating their way.
But Israel is saying that they have offered escorts for those trucks and that they've been refused by UN agencies. Is that true?
They are bombing central Gaza, where the vast majority of the UN's capacity right now is situated. There's literally no way for the United Nations personnel to get out of that area. So no, it isn't true. It isn't true at all.
So this is the lie.
So what is the solution to this particular impasse? Because Israel, I mean, you know, it's like two completely diametrically opposite statements of what the truth is.
Yeah, look, I think in relation to the truth, the simple answer, as you yourself have also said on this show, is to let international journalists in to tell the story as they see it. The situation in relation to the aid, as was instructed by the International Court of Justice, the highest body in the international legal system, is obligating Israel to let the supplies in. We have it.
That's what's happening. So the International Court of Justice, every major organization has damned Israel for what's basically happening. And they basically are denying that there's any kind of starvation whatsoever. No starvation at all, according to Israel. Everything is fine. The GHF is doing its proper work. And the rest of the world basically then is essentially left into kind of oblivion, total oblivion. There's no other work. The famine experts are basically saying that this is without any form of precedent in modern times. We are witnessing an entire single generation disappear. We're witnessing a generation disappear, and there's nothing else we can do. We're just sitting back like ducks, like a kind of a Hunger Games society. That's what's happening, a Hunger Games society. It drives me sick to the stomach to see what I'm seeing. Mama, do we have anyone in the studio? I see we've got Anam. Welcome, Anam. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, brother. Rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Any comments you want to make, Anam?
Well, I think last week you mentioned me. I wasn't able to jump on, but you had mentioned I was watching when you had mentioned that you think you changed my mind a little bit. And, I mean, on that note, I think, both you and Brother Muhammad were talking about how you guys are right. At the beginning of the war, that it's kind of a pretext for Israel to let the right-wing Zionists go completely crazy. So I that's the main reason I saw that, because I was listening. It was it was nice to hear you think of me.
Yeah, no, it's basically we've reached such a stage. I mean that what you see is something which we shouldn't see in modern day society in 2025, where you've got a kind of an architectural design of genocidal starvation. In fact, there is an interesting book by an author who works for this organization called Forensic Architecture. I mean, they did the report in Hind Rajab and so on. And he wrote a book called Mass Starvation, The History and Future of Famine. And it's essentially the whole point is that, when you tie the onset of famine, the complete starvation, the fact that this kwashiorkor, which we used to see as little children in Ethiopia and Somalia at the height of the hunger crisis in the 1980s. I can still remember that as a small boy, when you see African little children with bloated stomachs, that was a sight that greeted us. I mean, in the SADC regions and so on. And what this author of this particular book, I must just get his name. I think it's called Alex Duval. Alex Duval. He wrote a book, Mass Starvation: The History and the Future of Famine. He made the point that he's been working in this field of famine, food crisis, and humanitarian action for more than 40 years. And he's made the point that essentially there is no case over 4 decades of such a minutely engineered, closely monitored, designed mass starvation of a population that he's ever seen in his life in Gaza. I mean, if you look at what's happened, even in Rwanda, I mean, and there's lots of factors about the European role in Rwanda during the Rwanda genocide of the 1990s, and of course what happened in Yugoslavia in 1996. I mean, over a short period of time, certainly over a short period of time, but it was bad. But this is systematically designed. I mean, if you look at the starvation cases in Somalia and Ethiopia and sub-Saharan Africa, you could make the argument that, well, look, it's a capitalist system, and the policies of the World Bank and structural adjustment programs and inequality and all of that, and one could make the argument that these could be viewed as the kind of foreseen consequences that arise out of policies that are highly preventable and purely an economic policy that is geared at profit. But this is not even that. This is not something which is a consequence of capitalism or profit making or anything along that particular line, where the wealth is stolen. And of course, people are now in poverty and they see their resources being taken away and privatized and all of that, which is bad enough. But this is something else. This is like a kind of a Hunger Games society. And these writers have stated, and I think they were interviewed by Amy Goodman. I must get that interview on Democracy Now!, where basically they are saying it's a deliberate mechanism of getting rid of people, either by bombing them, either by shooting them, or by having these so-called militarized, what can only be described as militarized death traps, because the vast majority of the violence that we are seeing now, of course, there's been now bombings that have happened, and we've seen families being killed over the past couple of days. But since the GHF has come into the picture, the vast majority of the violence we are seeing on a daily basis is the shootings over the past couple of weeks. And there's like about, I think, 2 stations or 3 stations open. They open for 23 minutes a day. Imagine that. You open for 23 minutes a day. People are obviously going to be desperate. They're going to rush. They're going to fight. They're going to ask for... People are desperate. And so you've got 3 or 4 sites. Some of them are sometimes closed. And there's visual evidence. When you look at the spatial architecture of the GHF system, and of course those little pens that people have to go through. This is a militarized system. I've heard of the movies called The Hunger Games. I've never actually watched The Hunger Games. I must watch it. But, people describe this as a Hunger Games society that we are basically seeing. From May to April 2025, April to May 2025, this year, you saw the complete destruction of Rafah, the complete destruction of the Morak corridor. So at these corridors, at the Philadelphia corridor, you start to see this pop new military stations. And now that's viewed as some sort of justification. In my view, my personal opinion is that the GHF is simply a veneer to the world as part of a propagandist campaign by the Israeli regime to give an indication to their so-called American allies in the United States and the United Kingdom to say that, look, there is no deliberately imposed starvation because we've got the GHF. Because you see, then they won't be that emboldened, although some of them within the Knesset are, in fact, to say starve the population. But from an official policy point of view, by people like the scumbag David Mensa and Elon Levi and so on, they will take an apologetic position of defense, even to the extent of lying. But the GHF provides them with a convenient excuse that something is perceived to be done in terms of purportedly giving people aid. But that is a veneer and a cover-up for the actual imposed starvation that is essentially happening. And so this is a reality. Yeah, go ahead, Manam.
Yeah, I mean, look, brother, I don't want to justify, everything that we've been seeing on the screen. It's extremely, it's a humanitarian crisis, and the world shouldn't stand for it. But I do want to come and push back with you. Also, we were supposed to have a debate. I just think we kept missing each other. I think we have to set it up ourselves, because as much as when you mentioned to me last week that you have convinced me somewhat, and you and Brother Muhammad were saying, look, we were right. At the beginning, this was always a genocidal war, a genocidal campaign, and it was designed to reset the whole situation of the occupied territories. I want to first push back against you. This GHF thing, Israel had given the option for the Qataris or UAE to come in and distribute the food. They were not interested. The Jordanians are charging like $200,000 to drop food per pallet, And sorry, one other thing, the Egyptians, when the war broke out, they were charging $500,000 to Gazans for a visa to come to Egypt. And that is only for very wealthy Gazans who have money to escape. So, when I see our Muslim brothers, they're standing by at the borders and they're twiddling their thumbs. And, this could have been, Israel would not have done the GHF if the Arab countries had agreed to participate in the food distribution.
No, but where did the Arab countries, where do you have a report that they offered the Arab countries to provide humanitarian aid? And why would they want to do that? Why would they want to do that when you have a situation that there were all these the actual people who provide food are the humanitarian aid organizations. Now there are about 100 humanitarian aid organizations that stated we are there and this is our business, this is our job. We are able to provide the food. And there's 6,000 trucks right now that are outside Gaza ready for food to be delivered. Now, I just want to see, I've never seen this argument before. Where do you get the idea that Israel stated that, look, Qatar can come in and Saudi Arabia or Egypt can come in and start providing? That's never been the case. Can you show me a single report where this has happened? Do you have a report? Where's the report?
Yeah, I read it in the mainstream news.
There's no, I mean, if you look at the World Health Organization, even and not someone that I highly respect, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, he made the point that that Israel has imposed from April, in fact from March, including now, right up to now, because they give the idea that the aid has not stopped with the GHF, but they've basically continued the blockade. They've never allowed aid. The people who are there that are available to to deliver aid, they're being blocked from giving out aid. There's 100 aid organizations outside Gaza that are ready to come in. They are ready to enter Gaza, and they're being blocked from giving and delivering aid. Now, that's clearly mass starvation because of the blockade. And then you have a situation that even now, that blockade has basically not been open. I mean, the GHF, by the way, the GHF is and we discussed, I don't know if you saw the stream where we had, I think a week or two ago, probably 3 weeks ago, that it's a kind of a right-wing, far-right, one of the individuals that is running the GHF is in fact a far-right extremist himself, a far-right, hardcore evangelical Zionist. And he's running the show. It's backed by Washington, and it's got a right-wing evangelical as its chairman. In fact, the guy who was heading the GHF, the guy who was originally heading the GHF, he left. You're aware of that? I must just get his name because I saw the report. This was sometime in what was it? I think probably in February. Johnny, I don't know if it was Johnny Moore. If it was Johnny Moore or someone before that. Sorry, I can't recall his exact name, but he left. And the reason why he left is that because he saw the fact that this is going to be a potential death trap for the Palestinians. I mean, most of the people that are involved in the GHF, they are with former Black Ops operations. The World Central Kitchen, the WCK, who Israel killed, I mean, if you recall that last year, they were basically prevented from coming on board. And the World Central Kitchen, by the way, was always in the past on good terms with Israel. In fact, Israel supported them. After they killed those particular workers about a year ago, that's when the relationship kind of broke down. But I mean, there's 100 AIDS organizations, and not a single one of them, and this is their business, is in fact allowed. So I don't see the point that is being made when Israel now particularly gets, I think that's his name, Johnny Moore, gets a specific evangelical leader who's a hardcore. I mean, it's not just there are good Christians out there with good ethics, but this guy is not just a Christian with an ethic. He's a particularly apocalyptic millenarianist. They believe in this whole principle of millenarianism and the coming of the apocalypse and the battle of Armageddon. That's what he believes in, and this conflagration that's in the Middle East is needed for purposes of hailing the second advent and of the coming of Jesus. Now that's a guy that is basically running this kind of design of this Israeli GHF program to feed people, and when people come there, they're shot dead. So, I mean, I don't think you can excuse or push back or even basically grant Israel any excuse for not having any form of moral agency in terms of what is happening on the ground. I mean, that's not an argument. Let's assume to say that, look, we gave others the ability. I understand the Arab leaders are hypocrites. I mean, none of them, they're all tyrants, the whole lot of them. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, they should have invaded Israel a long time ago. They don't care for the Palestinians. That's not in debate. That's not my debate here. But the argument you're presenting is that these people, Israel gave them the opportunity to come and basically provide aid or be aid providers to them. What I understand, what I recall reading, is that they wanted these countries to allow Palestinians to move to these areas. And Egypt closed its borders, not surprisingly, and the other countries around the region closed its borders as well. I think Jordan also refused to take any kind of responsibility. I think that was what the issue is. But I mean, how do you justify the slaughter, this machine, this death squad that is basically operating? And how does it work? There's 3 distribution centers, 3 of them, I think, or 2 of them, and they open for 23 minutes a day and giving them food which you can't even properly cook. So, for example, if you give someone noodles or a packet of pasta, how the hell do you cook this? The boxes apparently don't contain bottled water. There's no cooking fuel. There's no medicine. There's no blankets. There's no baby formula. There's no baby food. There was a report, and again, this needs to be tested, that there was in some of the flour, there was something called oxycodone, which is a kind of a tablet which was some sort of toxic. I've seen that, I think, in the Guardian. I think in the Guardian report about a week or two ago, where there were these strange kind of poisonous toxic tablets which lead to some sort of illness if you take them, or something along that particular line. So this is the reality of the situation. I honestly don't see how this could be justified, and how now, approximately, according to the latest stats, close to 1,000, I think 1,000, in fact, these are low numbers, by the way. There's nothing under, according to some estimates, 1,500 Palestinians have been killed. And this was covered by CNN, Jeremy Diamond, Forensic Architecture, and in fact, one of the guys within the GHF that exposed the entire con, operating in cahoots with a group called ISIS. I mean, how do you make this up? This is Orwellian to the extreme. So what are your comments on that, Anam?
Yeah, brother, my thing is, when I'm still in the context of when you said, you kind of won me over, I'm still kind of like flabbergasted, because here's the thing, brother, like, I know you're saying, you've said on this show that you still support Hamas's resistance and you still want Israel dismantled. And this is why I'm like, this is why I have, the gall really to come on the show and defend the actions going on. Because, brother, like, if Trump said something, I hate to lean on him, but, he said, like, they're holding on to bodies, because out of the 50 hostages, soldiers, as you said, prisoners of war, only 20 or maybe are alive, maybe. And, and so you're holding on to bodies. They're in the tunnel, so they're rotting. And so, I mean, and to me, honestly, Trump, that guy Witkoff, right? Who ordered Bibi to, like, have a ceasefire for 60 days in January. Yeah. So that guy, could have, if Hamas releases all the hostages, and I know you've been rejecting this since I came on your show, since we met, but we could have had a ceasefire. And for some reason, I just don't understand, like, why rotting bodies are worth more than 2 million people.
But the point is that Israel is not concerned. I mean, it's quite clear now. It's evident that the hostages is not the issue. If Hamas hands out the hostages, this is not going to end.
Sorry to cut you off, but Trump himself has made it clear that, like, this is all it's about. He would have that ceasefire come in.
But Trump is not someone that it's got nothing to do. The aspect of the hostages is a convenient ruse. It's a convenient excuse, because Israel had the opportunity that every time that there was a negotiation, were hostages released or not by Israel, by Hamas, when there was a negotiation, at the time that there was a ceasefire, when was the most time that hostages was ever released by Hamas? At the time when there was for even if it's a day or two, or maybe even a week or under a week, where there was some sort of negotiations, was that not the time that the hostages were released?
Yeah, there were two phases: November 23 and January 25.
And then in October, the week after October 2023, Hamas basically stated, "We are willing to release all the hostages, but there are Palestinian children and Palestinians, close to about 10 to 12,000, that are kept in captivity in Israeli dungeons. They need to be released as well." So the entire aim, I mean, I'm not in support of hostage taking, but the entire aim was to negotiate a release of the Palestinian prisoners kept in dungeon. I mean, I just want to come back to this point, Anam, because the issue is, let's assume let's assume for the sake of argument, that I take the argument that you take, that look, release the hostages. My question is, Mohammed, if you can share this particular screen, if you can just share the screen here for me for a short time. How does Israel have any moral agency? I mean, when I see this picture, when I see this image of this baby, does Israel have any moral agency? Because where's the morality? Where's the morality? You can't in fact create a dichotomy to say, look, we get the hostages out, you release them, and most of them that have been released have basically been well-fed, like those female soldiers, and most of the hostages that have been released, even those that were critical about Hamas, have come out in fairly decent conditions. My question is, and there've of course been some that have died, and we don't know who's died in, like the Birbas children, I think. I saw the report in the Electronic Intifada that they were probably killed by the Israeli Defense Force. They're not concerned about the hostages. But be that as it may, if you have to make the argument that, look, get the hostages, and the hostages is causing this, how, even under the most extreme cases of hostage taking, how do you justify this? How does Israel have any moral agency for this?
And for Sham, it's particularly acute.
How does one
There's no milk.
justify this? I mean,
Gaza
you've seen
Hospital,
this
the
image.
same phenomenon. Baby Sila should be 3 times her current 3-kilogram weight.
She's cardiac free, chest free, neurological free. The problem in this baby is just acute severe malnutrition. The mother is malnourished.
Hope that milk and nappies.
My point is that
At Rantisi Children's Hospital, more and more
and
since
look
late
at the
May.
baby. This is another baby. The nappy cannot even cover him. How does, my question to you would be, Anam, does Israel have moral agency or does it not have moral agency? Because you can only make the argument of a pushback if Israel has no moral agency. So my question would be, what would the moral agency for Israel be in such a situation? Or does it have none? I mean, you're a decent person, and I know, and I've seen the times. I don't get as emotional as you in the sense of as Brother Muhammad and you, but I mean, I get angered, and it's probably because of the environment and the aggressive environment that I work in the legal field in criminal law, where you deal with child rapes and murders and things of this on a daily.
Heinous.
It messes you up psychologically. But my point is, does Israel have a moral agency? Does it have moral agency? This is the question.
Well, I'm kind of, I don't mean to be obtuse, but what does that question mean? But do you mean, okay?
Well, moral agency, yeah. I'll tell you what it means. I'll tell you exactly what it means. Moral, when you, for example, if you, let me give you an example. If you've got somebody that is taken under hostage, right, as a general case, not just Israel, and you have the view that, look, this hostage must be released at all costs. But in order to get that one individual, you basically state that you can kill and destroy and eliminate as many people. And your argument for being able to do that is that you have no moral agency, meaning no moral responsibility or agency to basically ensure that your actions do not cause the destruction of a whole range of people. So, for example, if your family are held up in a house by robbers, and the only way to basically, if you call the police or the army, and they say, look, hey, we're going to help your parents, and they do that by blowing up the entire house, which kills your parents, and they're going to argue, look, they've got no moral agency, they're just doing what they're doing. That's the argument. So you can only make the argument from a philosophical point of view that all that you see here is justifiable and that there's some sort of pushback if Israel has no moral agency. And the point being that when I'm saying no moral agency, meaning it's of no consequence whatever they're doing. And this, the point is, Israel, the Israeli state,
I agree with
is
you.
out of control.
So yes, it's out of control. I agree. But I agree. By the way, and I'm in New York. You know, we have a mayoral candidate here. I don't know if you've heard. But he said if Netanyahu comes to the UN for the General Assembly, he himself would order the NYPD, the police department, to arrest him. And by the way, there's an Interpol warrant out for this guy. So legally, the guy's within the right.
Well, just a good point. Basically, moral agency. And I just looked at the proper definition. I was giving my own definition, but essentially the capacity of an individual or an entity to make moral judgments and act on them, and thereby taking responsibility for the consequences of their choices. Now, does Israel should Israel be granted immunity from having moral agency? In other words, and get away with it. This is the whole point. And that's a point that Western governments like the United States and Trump and all of that have essentially been saying. I mean, Trump is not the right person to talk on moral agency, because in all probability he may have been involved in Epstein's Island, and you know what's going on with that aspect right now. So these are not moral people that we are dealing with in the first place. So it's difficult when you use a name like Trump or even Biden for that matter, or Mike Huckabee. I mean, these are not decent people in any event. My issue is that from an arbitrary point of view, if you have a nation called Israel, we know it's run by a fascist government. Does it have the moral agency tied to the concept of autonomy, responsibility, and the capacity for self-regulation? If it makes the claim that it does have that, which a lot of these apologists like David Menson and state, then on that basis, we shouldn't be seeing what we are seeing now before our very eyes, like this little baby that's being butchered and children being killed. I mean, and deliberately, there's now soldiers. What we said some months back, soldiers are confirming they're killing them. Why? Why they're killing them deliberately? I mean, you could even justify the argument that you're bombing to get civilians, to get the hostages. But now what's the argument when you are shooting people in cold blood when they come in to get food? What's the argument?
Look, I agree with you there, brother. And, you know, we watched the Democracy Now! Snippet. If you're the occupying power...
They New York,
at the
by
end
the
of
way.
day,
Pay Amy Goodman a visit.
Oh, yeah. So the thing is, you know, like, I want to, like, the occupying power is responsible for feeding the population, protecting the population, and everything, you know? So you're right. I mean, let me agree with you there. But, brother, the reason I'm on your show and I come on over and over again, even though, you know, I half agree with you and then I don't, is because, you know, brother, from the first day of this conflict, right? What I have seen is, you know, I used to have the same position that you used to, right? Israel has to be dismantled. This cannot continue. It's an apartheid state. We see this in front of our very eyes. They've always wanted to make Gaza into Bantustans. You know, we've been talking about this since the 90s. And now before our very eyes, like, we have West Bank is being turned into a Bantustan, and Gaza, I mean, there's nothing left. Like, I mean, like, you think the reason that they destroy everything is so that they can force people to leave, because, like, what's there to stay for if there's no sewage, sanitation, water to boil the pasta with, you know? And so, look, let me agree with you there. But here's my thing, brother. The reason I come on your show and the reason why I go up against, you know, two Muslims is because, brother, see, any state is responsible to its own population, okay? And so after World War II, you know, I know, you know, you don't want to see Israel's side and you're not worried about Israeli debts, you know, and I know you think October 7th the hostages are a red herring.
No, I do worry. I do worry
no,
about
because
Israeli
respectfully, brother.
No,
respectfully, brother. Also, when I first met you in our first conversation,
I don't worry about
I asked
Israeli
you what would have been a justified response by Israel, and you basically, this is why I'm coming on, is because you basically don't think Israel has any justification. Yes, let's agree here. This is overboard. You don't have a right to starve 2 million people or induce, you know, starvation conditions. But the problem is, brother, is that there you'd never recognize Israel's right to self-defense. And for me, this is what's going to cause a conflict to happen for the next 100 years. And I'm just interested in having a peace agreement and ending the conflict.
No, I agree that, but just one quick point on that particular issue, because I think I don't know, I think we may have made this particular point many times. Your argument, what you present, what I would call the Piers Morgan kind of argument with his thick British accent, which is hard, it's bogus. Essentially, he's made the point that after October 7th, Israel had the right to self-defense. Now, firstly, there's two problems with that from a legal point of view. I think it's under Article 51 of the UN Charter. I don't have it before me, and it's getting pretty late. But under Article 51 of the UN Charter, if, for example, the United States engages in a war with Canada or Mexico for that particular, Mexico, for example, attacks the United States, under international law, the United States has a right to self-defense. That is standard. That is standard. If hypothetically Saudi Arabia were to attack Israel, then Israel, under international law, even though I disagree with its the formation and of course believe it's an apartheid state, still under international law, it would have the right to self-defense, as flawed as international law is. But under Article 51 of the UN Charter, a nation state, or what they call themselves a nation state, legally speaking, that is attacked by an area which is under its occupation, cannot invoke the principle of self-defense in terms of international law. And therefore, even the question of proportionality cannot basically apply. Because nowadays you see people like Morgan, and I think your position is that, yeah, they had a right to self-defense at the beginning, but they've basically gone beyond that. Our position is slightly different. We are saying that no, the October 7th was an excuse for them to commit a genocide. So the position is slightly different. But I'm saying that you can't even raise now and this is not what I'm saying, this is what genocide scholars like Ras Sigal and Umar Bertov, I must get them on this program at some point, have made the argument that if you're a country that occupies another a country like Gaza or the West Bank, then if there's an attack that emanates from that area, you can't basically invoke the principle of self-defense against that particular, because it's not a nation state. And so theoretically, even if Hamas had entered Israel, they were not entering illegally sovereign territory. So when Hamas went into areas like the Kibbutz Be'eri and so on, they were not, in terms of international law, entering an area which is sovereign territory, because it's that area where they were formally kicked up, and they are under occupation of that particular power, which is viewed as illegal in terms of international law. Similarly to South Africa, when you look at South Africa, there was violence being committed by the armed wing of the ANC called the Umkhonto we Sizwe. And let me tell you something. Winnie Mandela, who was Nelson Mandela's wife, by the way, she was involved in having my cousin's husband's father murdered.
They used to put a rubber tire around your neck.
Yeah,
and
the rubber
on
ties.
fire.
They did something with the process called rubber ties, where you would necklace them and you'd basically burn them. Now, all these were being done by the ANC, and what the apartheid government then made the claim is that they've got a right to defend themselves. But nobody, no legal mind, I mean, internationally speaking, even some of the local minds like Professor John Dugard, Professor George Devenish, even invoked that argument of self-defense, because it starts on the premise that you can only invoke self-defense if your original conduct is essential. It's like a rape. It's like a rape. I deal with rape all the day. But even, for example, a rape victim goes and stabs her rapist, who's in the process of raping her, stabs him, and then he pulls out a gun and he shoots her dead. He can't say he's acting under self-defense. And so my point is that this is a very simplistic example. Israel is a rapist, and Gaza is a rape victim. And if the rape victim has to stab the rapist, and then the rapist comes and blows the head off of the rape victim, the rapist can't now invoke the principle of self-defense, because the act that you start off with is illegal. So in terms of international law, the aspect of armed resistance or the right to resist is something that Hamas is totally entitled to invoke an international law called jus ad bellum. And therefore, the United Nations, not surprisingly, hasn't denoted Hamas a terrorist organization. The UK and the US have, but not the United Nations, because it recognizes at some point, even though they may agree, that Hamas has a right to resist in terms of international law, but it has to be in accordance with the laws of war. Now, here's the problem. Here's a problem which I want to raise, that can Hamas, for example, be committing war crimes? And the argument is, of course, yes. But in those circumstances, then, it should be charged for war crimes before the International Criminal Court. And I think it was Mohammed Dave, if he's not dead or killed now, not Yahya Sinwar, but Mohammed Dave, who is in Qatar. He made the point in the interview that when what's his name, the prosecutor Karim, I forget the full name, Karim, when he issued arrest warrants against Gallant and Netanyahu, he simultaneously issued arrest warrants against Ismail Haniyeh and some of the other Hamas leadership. And they stated that, look, they would welcome a prosecution at the International Criminal Court. This is their statement. Their official spokesperson stated, if Israel would also stand on trial. So they welcomed that potential prosecution. And that's my point, is that from the perspective of Hamas, the right to resist always exists. If they had just gone into the Kibbutz Be'eri and, say, killed just all the soldiers, which of course they did, then, one could make the argument that it's game on. Right now, there's a lot of blurring in terms of what happened. We know the beheaded babies and mass rapes and all of that was false. They may have certainly killed innocent civilians, but the Hannibal Directive was obviously invoked at that particular point in time. But be that as it may, their incursion into Gaza, their incursion or their entry into Gaza is not a crime, is not a break of sovereign territory that necessitates a right to defense, even if they were to attack. And this is the whole point. But they can be charged for war crimes if war crimes are in fact committed. But they've got the right to armed struggle, but provided it's done in accordance with the laws of war. If it's not done in accordance with the laws of war, like the ANC armed resistance, it didn't make, when the ANC, the Mkhonto was seized, when, the Pan-Africanist Congress, I knew the former leader, they had a more violent armed group called APLA, and they engaged in worse atrocities than even the Mkhonto Wesizwe when they were involved in necklacing. Now, their actions may have constituted war crimes, and they were described as terrorists, but the struggle or the right to resist was never demoralized, and that's the whole point. That still existed. In other words, so you can't demoralize the right to resist, but you can criticize the actions, particularly if civilians are, of course, affected. But in those circumstances, still, you do not have the right to invoke Article 51 of the UN Charter, which limits your right to defend if you are basically involved in an illegal occupation. Now, if Gaza, let's assume Gaza was hypothetically a country, a nation state with an army, and now they decided, look, it's now been decided this is a whole country on its own, governing itself, but now they say, look, they still want Israel, because at some point in time, Israel was part of their land, and then they invade, and then they attack. Then maybe in those circumstances, Israel may have had a right to defend itself because it's one sovereign nation, albeit possibly with against another sovereign nation. You can only raise the principle of self-defense, Anam, and tell me if I'm wrong, if there is a moral equivalence or a military equivalence between two competing parties. But you can't raise a principle of self-defense against a nation that's under occupation and against a nation that is comprising of, for example, if you want to raise Hamas, ragtag people running around in sandals, and people who are basically starving and don't even have proper food to eat. So this is the bogey that Israel doesn't want people to see. They want to present Hamas like some sort of James Bond kind of criminal organization, which is absolutely not the case. I mean, these are simple folk. Maybe some criticism could have been leveled against the Hamas leadership. I don't know. I've never met them in terms of those staying in Qatar and where the monies went and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, Israel also gave them the money. So they needed Hamas to sustain the division from the West Bank in the very first place. All of this basically can be done away with if the Palestinians have the right to self-determination, or get rid of that. Just have one nation. Get rid of Gaza as an artificial construct. Get rid of the West Bank as a concept. And if Jewish settlers want to settle in the West Bank, by all means, then settle. But at the same time, get the Palestinians to go back to their homes. If they want to go to Tel Aviv and set up business and reside there, then they reside. Then the settlers can go and have an enclave that they believe this is a Judea and Samaria. It's going to be tough. There's going to be racists there, like there are white racists in South Africa, even today, and we deal with them all the time, and we deal with race-baited crime. That will be happening in Israel or Palestine or whatever you want to call it, in a one-nation state. But at the very least, it will create a solution to the problem that we have. But I don't know if we can even go that far. I mean, the world, we've reached a point of no return.
Right.
And that's why I called it the Gaza Holocaust. So I don't have. We should be positive as Muslims, but I don't have.
Your explanation does make sense to me. So you said you were getting tired. I will let you go because we're on different time zones. So thank you, brother, for having me. I will, inshallah, debate you or have more discussion next week.
Indeed, I like these discussions, and I'm with you. It's stimulating, and you're someone that I can respect. So we've never kind of become combative with each other, and although I have become combative with some other people.
One quick thing, brother. I saw your debate. You had a Hadith only person and a Quran only person, and you debated them. Because your channel is called South African Debate Initiative. You were on fire. I was very impressed. Because you're a political guy, you're a legal analyst. I can respect you for your debate skills in Middle East politics. But the religion, your recitation of Quran, very impressive. You're a very impressive debater, I wanted to say.
Thank you. I appreciate your support and your comments, and thank you for coming on this program. And you take care, brother Anam. You go well. Assalamu alaikum. Well, that's it, folks. It was a good discussion. Myself and Anam's been quite a regular supporter on this channel. I actually like him. I like Anam. I do believe we may have slightly different views, but I think he's kind of one of us, and I think he appreciates our points of view, and we can engage with each other. And so this is basically South Africa. It's fairly late in the evening. Mike, it's afternoon for you, but anyway, I'll entertain you. Anything you want to say? You've been listening to our stream. Anything you want to comment and communicate? How are you, Mike?
I was sorry. I had to run out and sell some furniture.
That's okay. That's okay.
Anyway, I don't know. Did you see my link from PBS on the? They said they think 1,400, mostly civilians, Alawites were killed. This is back in March, and now there's been another attack on the Druze.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen some of the images on social media, and it's horrific in Syria in terms of what's happening. There was someone who sent me a message, a friend of mine, just yesterday, I think, where he sent me a message, something about a shooting of these individuals that are Jolani's gangs, and we've discussed Jolani some time back, but I think the report was something. The man is being questioned, are you a Druze? And then when he says yes, then Jolani's gangs eliminate him. And the message was that, once ISIS, always ISIS.
Yeah, that's a
and this
a
is a reality of the situation. So we've always had a problem with death squads. And the question I want to ask is that why would I can't talk about, dealing with the devil, because your country has always dealt with the devil, or actually been the devil many times. But why would you want to go and, have support for this lot, which were formerly Al Qaeda? There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, it's like supporting not on that level, but I mean, the support of the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. They were formerly backed by the United Kingdom and Margaret Thatcher, and so on. And I mean, the killing fields of Cambodia, what then happened? Or the support of Augusto Pinochet in Chile. So it seems that whenever it comes to doing deals with the devil, the United States is up there. But I mean, you've got a problem with your present regime. I mean, I don't know, your president now. I mean, any comments on the Epstein files? We haven't discussed that, but it's quite clear that the two things he wanted to mention, the Kennedy files assassination and the Epstein files, never saw the fruit of the day, and I don't think they ever will, because when you're part of the system and you represent the elitist system, why would you want to destroy that very system that sustains you? And I think that's the end of the day. That's really the situation at the end of the day. Why would he want to release something which is going to implicate him? And now he acts. He stated a couple of months ago they were going to release it. Now he says there's no file. So, I mean, when people lie before you, I don't know if we've seen this level of lying in the political domain over possibly the past 20 years. I mean, during the heights of the Bush administration, people used to laugh at George W. Bush Jr., particularly after 9/11, and we had Fahrenheit 9/11 by Michael Moore and so on. And it's kind of, and of course they lied back then, but I mean, the level of mendacity and duplicitous double standards and horror stories that we are seeing before our eyes, this is unprecedented in modern history. Unprecedented, at least in the 21st century. And then, of course, you can go back earlier to the 20th century, but we're reaching that level of horror that we've seen in World War II. Because I think the horrors of World War II were not on social media, and we haven't seen the horrors that we are seeing in the world today for a very, very long time. A very long time.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting if you think about what brought down the British Empire. Gandhi's peaceful resistance, and then I think a general went in, at least according to the movie, and shot like 200 people, and it was filmed, and then it was released. Even if you go back to Crimea, I think is considered the first photographed war. The Civil War, you got these photos literally in the papers of a guy with half his head shot off, and people started to understand the horrors of war. War was seen as this glorious thing through all the empires.
I think the one thing people don't know also is that, when people assume about the Nazis, when the Nazis had their horror show in the Second World War, people of today assume or make the assumption that the Nazis were emboldened to broadcast what they were doing in the gas chambers of Auschwitz and Dachau and so on. But people don't realize that, in fact, Hitler and the Nazis never broadcasted to the world that, look, we are getting rid of the Jews because of this, of what they're doing, or that they're vampires in the society. We're getting rid of the Roma or the Gypsies because of this. That was discovered after the Allies and the bombing of Dresden, and the Allies came, and the fall of the Nazi regime, when you discovered the kind of massive atrocities that you saw during the period of the Second World War. And when people compare the bombing of Gaza to the bombing of Dresden, I mean, it's just insane, because Dresden was bombed after Hitler killed the German Reich killed something like close to 10 million people. So where is the analogy between the two? Germany was never under illegal occupation. Gaza is. Germany had a fully fledged mighty military empire that was about to conquer the whole of Europe. Gaza has ragtag people in sandals that don't even have a proper army. Gaza's under full starvation. I mean, so the analogy that you see by these Israeli apologists is weak. It's pathetic. It's ludicrous. And I don't even know why your own country is criminalizing a nation like a movement like Hamas. I mean, you could criticize them, and there's a lot of things to criticize, but they're not a death cult in the same way that you would find other death cults in the region, like ISIS, who is now, or Al-Qaeda, who is in league with the United States, and who are their foot soldiers at one point in time in the latter part of the 20th century. So the analogies that you see just simply don't work and don't apply.
Yeah. America often gets in bed with people we shouldn't for expediency and stability. Look at the Taliban.
Well, they're doing it now with Syria,
of course. And, I mean,
Jolani is a man. He's a Bin Laden in a suit and a tie. I mean, that's all I can describe. And we gave him a benefit of the doubt, but he appears to be a Bin Laden with a suit and a tie. That's only different. And I think he was going to be called or invited to the White House at some point. Imagine inviting Al Qaeda to the White House. I mean, that's what Reagan did with the Taliban. The forerunners of the Taliban, the Mujahideen. He invited them to the White House in the early 80s.
Sure.
So therefore, even popular American culture, if you look at the popular American culture, like your Rambo movies of the 80s and the action movies,
right.
They portrayed them as Rambo 3 as allies, and the good Indian. These are the good Indians fighting the evil Russians. So this is the name of the game, and I think it's part of the propaganda war.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen. I think there's a video. They may have scrubbed it from the internet now, but where a Taliban guy is, I think he's on a camel or a horse, but anyways, he's got a Stinger missile, and he literally gets off and shoots a Russian plane down with a Stinger that we gave him. That was one of the big worries after 9/11. If the Afghans had any more Stingers that we'd given them, that they'd start bringing down commercial airlines.
Well, 9/11 is something that needs to be obviously looked at. We never analyzed it on this program. I have in the past. There's you need to send your email to Mohammed or myself, or probably in the chat, and we can share. I've never actually shared any information with you in terms of. I've got you look like the type that likes reading and likes history. So there's some good material I can share, and we can engage and continue this conversation with each other.
Yeah, everyone's welcome to email me. Oh,
are you on some of the other Dawa channels? Do you still go on some of the other Dawa channels in the UK?
I'm banned from most of them now.
Why? Why do they ban a nice guy like you?
I don't know. I was when I was labeled a blasphemer, nobody will tell me how I blasphemed. But Hamza's Den was the first one I was ever on. I asked him if jinn could have sex with humans.
Was it Hamza Zorsis?
No, the white guy. He's got the hijab shop.
Okay.
Hamza's Den.
Well, I don't know him. I know who you. I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
I guess Hamza is maybe it's Daniel because he's something with a lion.
Okay.
But he has the arena. If anybody wants to check out episode 60, I still don't think they ever answered my question. But and then the same night, Eliza Quick, who's a moderator on his channel, said go to Dots Connect to Islam. I don't know if you've ever talked to any of those guys. Fawad,
No.
I guess he's a Brazilian.
I don't go on these channels. I don't actually go on these channels if I'm involved.
I asked them the same question. They got all upset, and I was banned from that. I'm banned from Dawa Over Dunya, EF Dawa, Dawa Wise, almost all of them.
Yeah, I've heard of EF Dawa, but I mean, they seem to be, there's a medical doctor there, and I think they seem to be Imran. Yeah, Imran.
Yeah,
Imran
yeah, Abbas. They seem like nice guys, and all of a sudden Imran got all upset with me, and I got banned. I don't know why.
Okay, well,
I did ask him one time, actually, and I'd like to ask you.
Yeah, we've insulted you at times, but we used to always welcome. I don't have a policy of banning people. Even, we've had people that abuse us, and Muhammad is quite cautious, but he's been shadow banned, and that's why this program is not being live streamed directly on the Coventry Faith Foundation. It's I don't know whether you linked onto my channel, but he's been shadow banned. The Coventry Faith Foundation has been shadow banned, even though he's got about, I think, 20,000 subscribers.
Yeah, he's been stuck on like 15.6.
Yeah, he just cannot get and cannot get. And I think the problem lies with the algorithms. If you got, say, for example, 1 million subscribers or 1.2, you can at least amass maybe 20,000 views, which is not a lot, but means you may be shadow banned, but because of the subscriptions of the popularity, people go specifically. But when you are a small channel and you are shadow banned and you describe content that is problematic, then YouTube ensures you goes down the ladder. And this happened during the COVID era. I was with a channel called Loving Life TV in Australia. They removed the entire channel. It was a day after the 20th anniversary of 9/11. We discussed 9/11 with an American engineer called Enver Masood, who was closely linked with architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, the 9/11 Truth movement, and they removed it. We discussed COVID. They removed those videos. So I think the more problematic you have, with regards to the content that you deliver, YouTube basically gets you, unless I get in contact with Elon Musk and he promotes his channel on X with 1 billion views. But this is the problem. We need to have our own platforms where we can communicate and talk. I always have a policy, Mike. I've always got a policy of, I wouldn't say I'm an absolutist in terms of freedom of expression, but I am I take it to the limits in terms of what I allow. I run 2 WhatsApp platforms called the Open Debate Forum and the Open Islamic Debate Forum. And the content that we discuss on those chats, even internally, in terms of internal debate, could in certain circumstances be viewed by some people as potentially blasphemous. So we go to the extreme limits. But I believe that if the Quran states, it puts out a challenge, do not consider the Quran with care. It been from any other than God, they would have found therein many contradictions. So the Quran challenges you to challenge it. And Islam, of course, if it cannot take criticism or critique for that particular matter, then it's not worth defending. And that's been my policy all the time. So I haven't discussed, particularly on this platform here, a lot of discussions on Islam, but maybe, when this genocide ends, we can kind of morph more back into what I used to originally do, where my prime focus, by the way, my prime focus was in Christian-Muslim debate, not on the Palestinian, although I have been discussing for a number of years, but my prime focus has always been Christian-Muslim debate. And perhaps maybe we can get involved with that kind of theme or thematic outline when this basically ends on this channel. Until then, you could probably follow me on other channels where I sometimes do debates. I've got an upcoming debate coming up soon, so I'll keep you in the loop.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'm all for freedom of speech. I don't know. I wouldn't call myself an absolutist. Absolutist, yes.
And neither am I, but I would believe in taking it to the limit.
Obviously we have slander laws and libel laws for a reason. Yeah, obviously you can't yell fire in a crowded theater because you expect a reaction of people to flee a fire, and you may cause a stampede. But it's interesting. I don't know if you saw any of the blasphemy cases like in the last 10 years that came out of Indonesia, like a declared secular state of all places. Ahok, A-H-O-K, was the governor of Jakarta, and he was a Christian, Chinese Christian, and one of his Muslim opponents said, you can't, vote for this guy, and he quoted 551, take not the Christians and the Jews for your allies, they're allies to one another, whoever among you very becomes one of them, and God does not guide such evildoers. And Ahok kind of just replied and said, well, I don't think that's what it really means. They arrested him, went all the way to the Supreme Court. They threw him in jail for 2 years.
Well, we oppose that. I mean, a true Muslim would oppose this kind of thing. Genuine. I mean, if you just want to cause slander and mischief making for the purpose of causing uproar in society, that's a different issue. Incitement is problematic and can be viewed criminal, and that's criminalized in every country of the world, including the West. So there's no absolute freedom in the United States or the United Kingdom. But genuine critique on religion or genuine critique on Islam, or self-critique has never been within the Islamic context, has never been undermined. I mean, one of the prime thinkers in the Muslim world, someone called Imam Ghazali. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
Al-Ghazali?
Al-Ghazali. He stated,
right.
and he made
the incoherence of philosophers.
Yeah, the incoherence
Allah
of
does not
philosophy.
burn the cotton, or fire doesn't burn the cotton. Allah burns the cotton.
And the point is, he made the point, and he made the issue that one has not believed unless he has really doubted. Unless you have doubted, you have not really believed. So, I mean, that's a profound statement made by him, and you don't have to necessarily agree with everything else he says, but doubt is also intrinsic in belief. Doubt in itself, and this is from the Islamic parlance, doubt is inherently intrinsic in belief itself. And your iman, therefore, can essentially fluctuate, depending, of course, on your position and your relation in life, and so on and so forth. But that's another debate entirely. Most of the people who apostatize from Islam or choose not to become Muslim, they do not necessarily make an intellectual conscious decision to say, look, I've now taken an approach of study deep. I mean, you may get probably the odd exception, but I mean, the vast majority who decide to apostatize or leave the faith don't leave the faith from a purely conscious intellectual decision that is made. It's more often than not an emotional aspect. It's possibly some form of sedentary approach, or already somebody coming from a secular background, someone that's not necessarily well-grounded religiously speaking, or has the necessary knowledge. But it's extremely rare for someone that has navigated the Quran with some sort of reason to basically make a conscious intellectual decision to leave the faith. And that's not because you are afraid or anything like that. That's total nonsense. I mean, although there may be some sort of apostasy laws in some countries, whatever the case is. But I mean, in most of the major non-Muslim countries that you see around the world, South Africa, UK, United States, you don't get a case where people make an intellectual decision to leave Islam because they've intellectually come to the conclusion that it is false. And, that's just a thought that you may want to mull over at some particular point in time.
Well, there's an interesting, if you Google BBC atheists in Egypt.
Yeah.
It's a little short clip, but there's a hijabi girl who's like, I've read the Quran, I can't tell my family I'm an atheist now, but she had left Islam. I think a lot of people have, again, like slavery or I was researching, whether or not concubines have to consent to sex with their masters.
I mean, but nobody has left because of slavery. Firstly, slavery is something which is intrinsic in the Judeo-Christian tradition. One could make the argument that from the Quranic point of view, it is not institutionalized. Islam and the Quran never institutionalized slavery. Slavery is not something that is even recognized in the Quran. The Quran has a term which is called Oma Malakat Aymanuhum, which is what your right hand possess. These are what we would call captives of war that are kept in some sort of bondage, but they do not belong to you as an individual. They belonged as captives of war to the community at whole. And they were basically kept under some form of servitude as prisoners of war for a particular duration of time. But under no circumstance could you basically go in and have unbridled sex with them or rape them in any way, shape, or form. That argument can, however, be made from the Old Testament, because there's some form of historical precedent, at the very least, in some passages where an argument could be made for enslavement, concubinage, and sex with them without their consent. That's not in the Quran. You don't have that. And maybe at some point, if you have the time, maybe I'd urge you to watch a video of mine. I think there was a 3-hour video where we go into this in systematic detail on a friend of mine. His name, I don't know, he's not anymore active. His name is Akil Onku. He goes under the channel called Raddush Shubahat, meaning refuting the doubt. He was very popular on an Arabic Christian station in the United States called the ABN, Aramaic Broadcasting Network, run by an Iraqi based in the United States. They had people like Usama Dagduk and Sam Shamoon and David Wood that were on the show. I did a debate with Usama Dagduk in 2017. Have a look at it. Type in, is ISIS Islamic, something along that line. That was my debate with Usama Dagduk, and you'll see the entire debate where we go into the aspect of concubinage and slavery and all those particular aspects, and we deal with it in full detail. It's quite interesting because it gives two sides, and then you can obviously make the assessment as to who actually had the stronger argument. And Dagduk, there's an Egyptian Copt. He was a very passionate, aggressive debater as well. So you'll probably enjoy that.
I'll check it out. Thank you. Yeah. I just posted in the private chat a link to a paper from a woman, Kaisha Ali from Boston
University.
I'll
have a look at it.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
What I'll do is I won't be able to open it on StreamYard after this link is closed, so I'll paste it on my email, and I'll certainly have a look at it. Okay.
Cool.
You take care. Take care, Mike. It's been longer than I anticipated the session. I wasn't going to have you this long, but you go well. All the best.
You go to bed. Have a good one. Yeah, it's only 5 o'clock here, so it's all's good. Have a good one.
Okay. Take care. Peace. All right, so that's it, folks, and that's all pretty late now in South Africa. I thought it was going to go for an hour. I see it's gone for probably 2 hours, 15 minutes, so I never anticipated it was going to be that long, but this is what we're discussing, the final stages in Gaza, the Gaza Holocaust. It is a Holocaust. It's no longer genocide. You can see the killings, the massacres, the murders, the rapes, the starvation. We need to share this video as wide as possible, expose people, create the discourse, and ensure that we speak up for the Palestinians and their rights to self-resistance and self-determination. Until next time, this is Yusuf Ismail on behalf of the South African Debate Initiative. Share, like, subscribe to our channel, share it on all platforms, subscribe to the Coventry Faith Foundation. We are doing the stream solely through the South African Debate Initiative. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace.